First thing is Pat Kraft in the interview he had. So basically what's going on is there's a lot of stuff that he kind of addressed, if you will.
Yeah,
one of them
Pat
being
he's great, man.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Oh
Pat.
yeah, very driven.
Yep.
Knows
what he's doing. He's not just an all talker guy. Like he walks the walk. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So he talked about the structure of, I don't know why that's not playing, but he talked about the structure of the revenue sharing. He talked about the college football playoff. He talked about all the sports. But the main thing that stuck out to me was the fact that, and Jim Knowles talked about it. Coach Drayton talked about it, winning a national title.
Yeah.
Pat Kraft said he wants to win national titles. He wants to win a national title in all sports. But obviously, okay, so here's the thing. Brett and I, most of our alumni, Penn State, we talk about football. Football is our sport. Football is what we focus on. Football is what we love. We're red-blooded Americans. That's what we love. Football is our sport. That's across the board. NFL, college, high school. Football season, when you really get into the football season, there's football on every night of the week pretty much.
Yep.
But your typical person is going to a high school game Friday night, watching college football on Saturday, and then Sunday they're watching the NFL. So that's 3 days of football. That's drinking and eating, and that's why everyone's diets they just hit the fan when football season comes around, because it's a part of it. Football is our thing, but Pat Kraft talked about everything.
Yep.
So the main revenue share. So pretty much what it is we can pay players now directly. I guess there's like $20.5 million, and that goes to like the biggest schools. And he wants to use that accordingly. So he mentioned football. From what I've divulged, it's football, it's men's and women's basketball, wrestling. We have the best wrestling team in the world, is what he said, which is true. We have the best wrestling team in college sports. We have a dynasty in wrestling. It's the Alabama football of wrestling, even though I think we've won like more national titles.
We've won more.
Alabama.
Yep. So
now, historically, and I say Penn State is the mecca in football because historically we're just been consistent for years and years, decades and decades. One coach, winningest coach of all time, winning year in, year out, always ranked high. We're winning national titles, going to national titles, winning conference championships, all that. Alabama hasn't always been that. Ohio State hasn't always been that. Michigan hasn't always been that. Michigan and Ohio State have been consistent, but Alabama was Alabama when Saban was there. Just like the Patriots. Like the Patriots were a dynasty, but before that, what were they doing? I think they went to like one Super Bowl and got beat by the Packers, the Patriots before that, I think. So same with Penn State wrestling. Like they're a dynasty now. They weren't always a dynasty, but they are now. So pretty much from what I've taken from it, and I'm going to get Brett's thoughts too. You get this ad revenue sharing. We could pay players directly. Like he mentioned, like if there's the number one fencer in the world at Penn State, fencing is very good at Penn State. I'm pretty sure they have like multiple national titles. Then the top guy should get some money for sure because he's the best. He, she, whatever. And this goes for women's basketball too. Like I think it's Allie Campbell is her name. She's pretty well known for Penn State women's basketball. Like, she could get some money for sure because she's well known and up there and popular. And she was at UConn, I think, and then she came here. So it's stuff like that, like revenue sharing, like Penn State quarterback. That's a household name, no matter who you are, no matter what year it is. Like, Penn State quarterback, you're popular. Like, people know who you are.
The premier position, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much he wants to get ad revenue to all the sports. He wants to win national titles. He spoke about scholarships, getting wrestling up to 30 scholarships, because they do need that. Like, if you want the best wrestling program, and I don't know how big a wrestling roster is. I'm not a wrestling fan really at all, even though we're really, really good. Getting them everything they need because they're the best. I mean, they're better than football, different sport, obviously, but, and then you got all this star power. Franklin's recruiting. I've said before that Franklin is the guy that you want in this freaking chaos that is college football, NIL, the college football structure changes, transfer portal. Franklin is the guy that you want. He's just a natural with all that. The man's a machine. He doesn't sleep. I don't know how he does it, man. Honestly.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so getting scholarships, divvying money up, that's a big thing right now, and he spoke about that. So what are your thoughts on that, Brett? Did you watch that interview he did?
I watched some of it. I already kind of mentioned that this was coming, the salary cap, like the NIL cap for every big sports team, and like in college, not just college football, in college athletics, like the 20 million and a half or whatever the number is. That we knew this was coming. It's better and more fair for everybody. Teams like Oregon and who else? Some of these teams that are throwing crazy amounts of money at one player, probably not going to happen. It's going to happen to a certain extent still, but if you do that, that's your own fault. That, for one, other players are going to know that you're paying that one player way more than they're getting, and then you're going to have less money to give the people on your team and retain players, which James Franklin and Penn State's very good at retaining players. Look what they did for this year. Keeping Zane Durant, keeping Denai Dennis Sutton, keeping Drew Aller, keeping Nick Singleton, keeping keeping all these players that could have left. And this is a good chance for them to stay because they're earning money. They want to win a national championship. They're on the same page. Nobody's better at retaining players than Penn State. At most other schools, a lot of players are going in the portal and they want to go make money somewhere else. And usually it's pretty good players. We haven't lost anybody that really hurt us. The only one that really didn't make sense to me that I was kind of upset about was Harrison Wallace, right? Because he played a decent year, and I think he could have had a really good year for a senior year. But it is what it is. We're on to the next, and we got 2 new receivers in. But that's the only one that really, I think, affected us a little bit at first was Harrison Wallace. What do you think about that?
Yeah. In what sense?
Well, I'm saying what I'm getting at is Penn State doesn't lose any players in the portal that really hurt the team usually. Usually it's people who aren't getting playing time. And the only one that really shocked me, I mean, Amari Evans maybe a little bit shocked me, but he wasn't as big of an X factor as Harrison Wallace was. Harrison Wallace had double the amount of yards, around the same amount of touchdowns, but he was more of a possession receiver and got it done and was able to run routes enough, the short routes, which Amari Evans was able to do. Huh?
When did he leave again?
Wallace?
Yeah.
Harrison Wallace and Amari Evans, they both just left at the same time.
Yeah. It was after the window.
After the season. Yep. So, for the NIL thing, what I'm getting at is it's better for college football. It's better for college athletics for it to be more even across the board. That everyone has a cap on NIL funding, money, whatever you want to call it. And now you're going to have to spread it out more. And like I said, $10 million going to Bryce Underwood. It's not going to happen when that's half your money. When that's literally half your money moving forward, nobody else is getting 10 mil moving forward. Watch, it's not happening. It won't happen. Somebody might get $1 mil, $2 mil, but maybe 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see that type of deal happen again, which is good because, like I said, then there's more people in the game. There's more people able to get that player. So
I'm going to play this.
Change the narrative of NIL. It's marketing now. It's marketing dollars. I think with the new rev share and the 20.5, obviously we're going to invest the 20.5, then it increases 4% every single year after that. I mean, we're doing that. I think from what people think the traditional NIL piece, I think we're where we need to be. Look, you got to continue to do what you got to do. But in this new system, you're going to have to show fair market value. And this is where the power of Penn State is a huge asset. Because fair market value for the starting quarterback at Penn State is pretty good. And we've got to lean into that and with our business partners. And so that's the kind of the new world of name, image, and likeness. How about we change the narrative?
Yeah. The new president, Ben DePuty, businesswoman, she's good.
Yep.
Definitely opened up a lot of doors for us in Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Kraft, a good addition.
Phenomenal.
And then Franklin. Yeah, so
it's night and day compared to what it was with Sandy Barber. It's night
absolutely.
And day. It's not even
close. So yeah, overall, it's just totally different. In a good way. So
facilities being upgraded, like all that stuff happened because of Pat Kraft and Ben DePuty.
Yeah, so pretty much the gist of it is paying players directly, revenue sharing. He wants to give it to everyone if he can. He wants to divvy it up as best as he can. 31 sports, I think, at Penn State.
Yeah.
So if you take, and I think it's $20.5 million for the whole school.
Yep.
So 31 or 20.5 divided by 31 sports, that's 66,000 a sport.
But that's not going to be half of that's going to go to football. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, exactly.
10 million is going to go to football. I mean, it's everybody knows it.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number, but let's take a wild guess. It's going to be close to that.
Yeah. So, and then in addition to that, so the calendar, and making the game earlier than January 20th. He said, are we going to have a championship game in March? So they need to change that for sure. It should be the top 12, top 16, whatever it is. Top 12, lowest seed plays the highest seed. You could have Alabama playing Oregon, for example, who I think was like 12 or 11, and beating Oregon. The way it is now is horrendous. Not a single bye team won. They had Arizona State, Boise State with byes. Like that's terrible. And then Oregon lost, and who was the fourth? Georgia lost too.
Yeah.
So that's horrible. You don't want Boise State and Arizona State having a bye. You just don't deserve that. You're not a premier program at all. Yep. So they need to just be top 12, worst place first. And in addition to that, no bye weeks. I don't think there should be any bye weeks. That clearly hurts something. Hurt Oregon for sure. And again, Oregon, Tennessee, and Notre Dame, all of you guys let us down. You let America down. Texas, Ohio State won. That's one of the worst things that could happen. It's probably the last team I want to win the national title. I mean, and even if we beat them in the regular season, man, I think they're still probably going to go on and win the national title unless we beat them in the playoff or something. And then the 1 seed gets like one of the hardest opponents. It just doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. I understand why it's structured the way it is, but it needs to change. So
and it's not going to change until 2026.
Yeah.
From my
So
understanding, it's going to stay the same this year and then change next year.
Yeah.
Which
one
is
way to change. Yeah, and again, one way to change it is take away the bye weeks. I mean, those teams are playing earlier, so that's like one less week. But you can still have like week and a half in between the national title and the final playoff game. I think it was a week and a half roughly. They should make the national title on a Saturday, not on a Monday night. That's another horrible thing about it. Monday night, like that just doesn't make any sense. So, and I know they want to kind of take in terms of the NIL the transfer portal, take like an NFL approach where after spring is when you can start moving around and stuff like that. Which that's a whole nother can of worms, but avoid Bo Pribula leaving before the season is over, so that we could use him.
Yeah.
And then like another thing, like the NFL, don't let coaches interview until the season's over. I mean, you have the offensive coordinator, I think it was, for the Lions, already a head coach for another team before the season's over. Like, that's a distraction for sure, 100%. So changing that so that they don't have to transfer till after the season. And then, the calendar with spring ball, man, like there's a lot of teams canceling spring games. I guess it's because of they don't want tape out. Is that right?
They don't want cheating. They don't want like what Michigan did but dude, it's a spring game. Like nobody's doing their actual like Kotelnicki's not doing Kotelnicki things at a spring game. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think it's pathetic that people are canceling it. I get the idea that they don't want people to have any chance of pulling a Michigan 2023, whatever 2022, whenever they were cheating, but that's not going to happen, dude. I don't think it's going to happen regardless of having a spring game or not. If it does happen, it's going to happen in actual games. That's what happens. I mean, that's what Connor Stallions did. He did it in actual games, not a spring game, dude. Nobody saw him with a hat and sunglasses on in a spring game. We didn't see any photos of that. So I think it's for Penn State would never cancel the spring game. They would never do it.
Yeah,
Penn State knows it. We know it. It would never happen. It's never going to be canceled unless there's like a terroristic threat or something crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's not getting canceled. So I think it's a joke that there's like 10 teams or so that said they're going to cancel it. And I don't agree with it. I think you're just being a baby and,
Well, another thing they talked about was the calendar for spring. So like with the spring transfer portal being what it is, and then losing guys or bringing guys in, like before the spring game or whatever, really shakes things up too. So they're trying to change that as well. Because that is the thing. You transfer into spring, man. Like I think you're coming in or leaving right before the spring game. So when you go to the spring game, you got a guy who, I think what you're getting, but he doesn't really know your system that well yet. And then he's coming in for the spring game. That shakes things up too. Matt from Penn State Jerseys, who was on here, the Penn State Jerseys page, he said we're going to get 2 all-conference receivers in the portal, which I hope we do.
They're not going to be in the portal. We talked about it.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith, like he was offered $4.5 million to go somewhere. I don't remember where, but he was offered $4.5 million to go somewhere. Could have been Penn State. I don't know, but
no, I think I remember hearing who it was, and I can't remember, but it was like might have been an SEC school, something like that. It wasn't a Big Ten school, I don't think.
Like
could have been
Jeremiah Smith going to Alabama to play with the nail painter, Ryan Williams. Like that would be unbelievable. The quarterback for Alabama would just have 2 pretty much future top 5 picks of receiver, almost guaranteed.
So far, Jeremiah Smith is on a better trajectory than Marvin Harrison. junior.
Yeah.
So
Well, he
that's
doesn't
pretty
paint his
crazy to
nails
think.
either, so that's cool.
Huh?
He doesn't paint his nails either, so I don't
Yeah.
think.
Not that we
So
know.
yeah,
Not for game day, anyways.
yeah, exactly. But so there's that. The spring transfer portal and the spring game and all that. That should again screw up the calendar. So they're trying to like change all that. I thought originally it should have just been 8 teams. That's it. Just 8 teams. Top 8. That's it. They get in. That's better than 4, and that's better competition. So I thought it should have been 8 teams, but it sounds like it's going to go to 14, then 16. But again, top 16. That's it. 16 plays 1 on down the line. No bye weeks. That's how you really structure that differently. I think you can make it happen with the calendar. So we have an earlier championship game. I mean, Josh Pate said about it too. Like, can we get an earlier than January 20th championship game? And can it be on a Saturday?
Yeah.
Work with the NFL for that. Because now that's like towards the end of the NFL season. Because the NFL is still playing regular season games later than they normally did. But, so there's a lot there, man. And he's just trying to navigate through all that. He's a good guy to have doing that for us.
Yep.
Pat Kraft, high energy guy. Spoke about Thon and everything. And so it's interesting for sure.
Yep.
Everything that's I'm glad I'm not doing it, but they're getting paid good money to do so. So that, I worked